Okay, so thanks everyone for joining for the Career Supports Program today for the International Chapter of Graduate Women in Science. I'm Susan FedEx, the International Chapter President. Yes, so if everybody, as you join, if you can stay on mute unless you're the one speaking, or if you will take questions at the end, but that will help with the recording. So regarding career supports for women in science, we have Natalie Benjamin Damenos from South Africa. So she'll be the first person of the panelists to speak and help us understand more about career support. So Natalie.
Thank you very much, Susan, and thank you for having me. Hello, fellow women in science. I'm joining from sunny South Africa, where I work at the University of Witwatersrand in health sciences, specifically physiotherapy and early childhood development. So I love pediatrics. In my thoughts on career support, I was very fortunate to have a coach and mentor to guide me. And this is someone who is not your supervisor, and they help you navigate your career journey, and they generally direct you to the most relevant resources in your institution. And they also are the ones who would nominate you for specific programs if there are. So in our context, often there are programs that are announced every now and again, but you need someone to nominate you. And your mentor is a great person to help you with that. Also to guide any applications that you may have, to revise your application, and then to guide you in terms of how to strengthen it as well. This relationship guides your career path and assists you in making the best choices for your career trajectory. But to begin, I think planning is always critical, and it takes a lot of time in the beginning, but it's worth every minute or hour spent on it. But you also need to revise this plan regularly and adjust it as you need. And this is a great way to track your progress, to make sure that you stay on the right path, that you don't lose focus. And at your institution, it's very important that you know the criteria for promotion, if there are, and create a folder where you collect all the information that you need for that application, because the application often takes a very, very long time to compile. And that's absolutely essential to have it and continue working on it, so that you don't feel overwhelmed when the deadline is looming. Also have an accountability partner that you check in with weekly, where you discuss challenges, you discuss victories, and you can brainstorm ideas. And this is also a great way to improve your profile as a researcher, or to find other networking opportunities that will grow your profile. What I find really useful is to either journal or do a bit of reflection, and you can choose whether to do it daily or weekly. And this record keeping helps you to think on what worked well, what didn't work so well, and what you can do differently. And it helps you to keep a positive outset on your journey, because it can become very lonely, and it can become very, very overwhelming, especially if you have a lot of other things going on, such as academia or family responsibilities. Another great idea is to have a routine, a sustainable daily routine that includes all important tasks. So you literally got to put everything in there and schedule time to work on your research, whether it's reading an article, writing, or just planning what to do next. And they work exceptionally well in managing your family and balancing your life in general. It also provides an opportunity to be more present when you do have time with your family, because you know everything else has been slotted in already and will be dealt with. Very important, do not procrastinate. We all hate those tasks that really take a lot of energy, but get it done. Just get it done. And it saves you time later on and a lot of frustration as well. Be consistent. The very small gains build long-term results. which you cannot replace with anything in the world. And make time for yourself. You know, that's the one thing we as women forget to do. We always say, you know, there's no time in my day. And what worked for me was that I get up an hour earlier, where I do my exercise, I journal, and I just do a bit of spiritual reflection as well. And it's made me a happier person, also a more well-rounded person. So that's my little bit that I could add.
Yeah, thank you, Natalie. I really like that a lot of your focus is self-empowering. I was noticing that theme earlier on, but then even towards the end, talking about your personal, you know, helping to keep balance with your spiritual side, which, you know, is mental health. So thanks. That's for me, that was an unexpected twist. That's really good advice.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, we'll take questions at the end. So we'll go through everybody and then we can ask questions of our panelists at the end. So next, Jennifer Bradley from the US.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Bradley. I'm from Richmond, Virginia. I'm currently a research scientist at Virginia Commonwealth University. And I'm going to throw in all of the non-traditional things. I was undergrad, pre-med, got waitlisted, school started, I didn't get called. What do I do with the rest of my life? Well, I worked in a forensic science lab. I had opportunities to work in the state public health lab. I had an opportunity to work in a corporate scene, which was the low rung ladder for me, entry level. I called it Pap smear factory work. And then I was able to be introduced to academia as a technician. And I was fortunate enough to work part-time work full-time and get my master's part-time, and then continue working full-time and getting my PhD part-time. So I am like non-trad. And I think that the advice I would like to give everyone is that I had the opportunity to be a part of a women's leadership conference. And what really hit me from a presenter was that we really think that we have this ladder approach. We have to go up one rung and the next rung and the next rung. In reality, our life and our careers are more of a lattice. So it's okay if we need to transition or take a lateral move or figure out the best way to move forward. That may not be that next rung up, but could be something to the side. So with that, I learned and worked with the career development office at the university and had a really strong mentor through that office where I would always stay and ask questions after. And I used that capability to really hone in on my skills necessary for my essays for PhD once I received my master's, and used those components and that mentor to move forward. I'm also non-trad in that I was the first in my family to ever go to college, to ever get a master's degree, to ever get a PhD degree. So my mentors were people that I found. And that, again, is individuals that are willing to help you. And it is okay if someone says, hey, I can't be your mentor right now. That has nothing to do with you, everything to do with them and their time and what they can give to you. So don't take that personal. And as you grow and you move forward or move laterally to next steps, you will have instances where mentors that were your mentors are no longer able to continue to help support in the way that you want to or need to be supported. And that's okay to move on and to find others that are available to you. So it's quick. My main focus, again, is very non-traditional, and non-traditional is okay. And we don't know what we want to be when we grow up, always. And even when we have the position that we want to have, we may not know what we want to do in the next 5 to 10 years. We might have our 3 to 5 figured out, but not our 5 to 10. And that's okay. So I appreciate the time, the opportunity, and the main takeaway is that if you don't have it all figured out, that's okay. Find individuals that are willing to help you and to be there and to be a part of your corner. And sometimes the best way to move on and to move up is to get out of that comfort zone and find individuals that can help you that may not be in the realm that you're used to. So again, my example was this career development individual that really helped me and moved me forward. And she had nothing to do with my job and had nothing to do with my studies. But from her and from some of the lessons learned, I was able to then find other mentors that fit my path to move me forward. And that's where I am now. I have a mentor that's really trying to help me move from research scientist staff position towards faculty, which again involves grant writing and lovely scenarios. One other thing is, even if you don't think that you check that box, ask. It doesn't hurt to ask. So my university had a program where they would do a writing workshop where you would just meet every Friday for 3 hours. It was set up for faculty, but they allowed PhD students to join. And that's how I got the majority of my dissertation written. With women as well, it is very, very imperative that you give time for yourself. And another thing that I do is there's that writing block. So on Fridays from 9 to noon, I have it on my calendar. I tell individuals, I'm sorry, I'm already in a meeting. Is that meaning me joining the writing block session so I can get a grant specific English page done? Yes, but they don't need to know that. I already have a meeting and I'm scheduling myself and my time for my advancement along with taking care of everybody else. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, that's lots of good good information in there. You spoke similarly to how Natalie did about having mentorship or getting guidance from outside of your direct line, your direct line manager, your direct supervision, so there's no conflict of interest. That was also something that Natalie had just said, which I think is a great idea. And then that idea of creating the space for yourself, and you have a meeting, even if it's a meeting between you and your laptop to write a grant proposal. And also I like the idea of how you accepted an invite for a conference, because we get a lot of invitations. We have to choose our time wisely, but sometimes going to a conference or getting an invitation, that is when you can meet somebody or hear someone else's idea. So don't overextend yourself, but go participate in the conferences and the different things that there is time for, and that can possibly help with your career. So that definitely helped a lot. Thanks. So next we'll go to Ifalua, who is joining us from Nigeria. Ifalua, are you there? I know we call her Iffy sometimes. She might have trouble connecting. I know sometimes there's issues. We can come back to you, Iffy. If you're having issues, just type it in the chat and just to let us know. We see that you are here. But in the meantime, let's move on to Janelle. Is that how you say it? Janelle Koala?
Yeah, I usually tell people Janelle.
And your last name? How do you say it?
Koala, yeah, like the koala bear. Yes.
As it was coming out, I realized it sounds like koala bear, but spelled differently. So yeah, if you don't mind, go ahead.
Yeah, of course. So hi, everyone. This is my first meeting, actually. My name is Janelle Koala. I'm currently in Los Angeles, California, and my discipline is medical biophysics. And so I was born and raised on Guam. Not much PhD programs there. And so how I got into science was my parents actually helped me with my science fair projects growing up. And so the idea that schools had a mandatory science fair actually helped me in the long run. And of course, supportive parents who always helped me, even though they never really understood the science part. They at least supported me, tried to help me do it. And so it was actually my parents who gave me this idea that every problem has a solution. And so they're both actually engineers from the Philippines, but they grew up with a different kind of culture and mindset. And so I'll get back into that. But I decided to leave Guam because there's only one university. They didn't have a PhD program. They don't have a med school. I didn't know what to do with my life, but I knew there was more opportunity if I left. That was one of the hardest decisions I had to make because, Guam is a small, tiny version of Hawaii. And so imagine leaving that and coming anywhere else. And so I actually left Guam to go to San Francisco area first. I lasted for a semester and realized that I don't want to go from 90 year round to foggy all day. So I left, moved to LA. My siblings are actually here. My siblings are older than I am. My brother is 18 years older than me. And so I decided to go to community college, which isn't traditional. Also a hard decision, as a lot of my friends and family were kind of looking down on community college, as most people do. I had a great time, and that was actually the moment where I had a professor, my chemistry 101 professor in the summer, come up to me and tell me that I work well with other people and that I have potential, and that she wants me to try and apply for this research program at Cal State LA. And so I was actually doing nursing and chemistry as a major because I didn't know what to do, and my family was kind of pressuring me into the other one. And so I decided to just try it. It's the summer. I don't know what research is. So I was uncomfortable with the idea, but I still went for it because I still didn't know. I had this idea that I wanted to do science. I love it, but what does that mean? And so I actually did that research program. I eventually transferred to Cal State LA, got my undergrad in 2019. And during that time, I just fell in love with research. I was pre-med thinking I'll just go to med school. That's the only option for science. But as I was doing research, I fell in love with it. And so I actually spent 2 summers at Caltech doing research and seeing what the possibilities are. So anything is a possibility, and there's so many questions that you can ask, and it's just an unlimited amount of questions. And so I started applying for grad school. My program at Cal State LA actually pushed me to apply to 10 different schools, which was a stressful time. But I did it. I took 2 months, 3 months. I don't even know how long, but I got into most of the schools, and I really did think I was going to go to Caltech. I went to my interviews. I actually saw that there is more career supports at USC for what I wanted to do, which is Caltech's great for basic science. I love the people there. It's a very stimulating environment, but as a graduate student, I wasn't even sure how to be a scientist. And so I felt like USC had more career supports because they had a bigger network. And so right now I'm a 3rd-year PhD student. I'm still surviving. And the reason is I've had all these past mentors who have said that I can do it, even in the time where I didn't think I could. And so I've gone against all these things. And yes, as a woman, I have been told, it's surprising that I'm in biophysics, or I can't do the project that I want to do. It's too ambitious. I've kind of heard it all, but and I have felt down about it. But I have mentors right now that I talk to about it, that I'm open to about it, and they tell me that it's okay, and they've heard it all too, and I'm sure you have all heard it too. And so I just wanted to give my summary of my advice is, I would say just go for it. If it's something that you want to do, there's a way to do it. It's a non-traditional path, but any path to the part where you want to go is definitely worth it. And sometimes mentors don't just pop up in life as fortunate as I was, or as fortunate other people were, but you need to look for mentors who are willing to give you that support. Sometimes they just need a conversation, like you just say hi to them. And that's what I realized, networking is very important. And the last thing is, be kind to yourself, because my mentors always tell me this every single time, because when I give them a piece of data, like my PI, I always am a little pessimistic about it, but then they get so excited about it. And I realize that I should stop saying, bad things about myself and just agree with them. And that means agreeing with them, taking time for yourself, doing what you need to do. So that's it for me. And hopefully you can have a discussion later.
Yeah, thanks. You brought up a good point about supports from home base and your dynamics with your family and how they were supportive and how you knew you had to leave given the restrictions of the universities, but also to keep in mind, just as long as you're managing that well, because some people may not have had families that were so supportive, especially with leaving. So if you have friends or if you have another network, that look for those options, because that personal support will be quite helpful, especially if you're moving locations. That could be quite difficult if your family isn't your number one fans about the movement that's going on. So thanks for bringing up that point. That's really important to think about as far as progressing in your career. So let's move on. We'll try Iffy once again. I see she's unmuted. Are you there? I saw she had disconnected and reconnected. So so that's why it's definitely she's having issues with the signal. Because if not, meantime, okay, I guess perhaps not. We'll go to Maria. So Maria, do you mind introducing yourself, and you can share your slides? Yeah.
Hey, hi, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here. It's my first time being with this community, and I'm so happy to see many members from different countries. It's really international. It's great. So I'll go ahead and share my screen and tell a little bit about my story. Right now I'm a mathematician located in California, but my story started far away from here. So I grew up in a small village somewhere in Russia. It's not Siberia, but close to Siberia. We have snow for more than 6 months during the year. And so this is me this winter. I visited my family. This is my stepfather. And behind is our village. So this is a place where I came from. And so it was the path from this small village to California was not an easy one. First of all, it was lots of obstacles, and the first one was financial, of course, and then buyers and other things, but I think I will not talk about it now. I will talk just about my path. So from village, I first moved to pedagogical college. It was not so far from my home place. And there I got a support from teachers, so who really saw something, so who noticed my talent, because when I was in school, my teachers were saying that math is not for women. I shouldn't continue career as a mathematician. And from there, I decided that I will continue. I was actually offered to continue my education to do a PhD. And so I moved to Kazan State University, which was farther. And so I started my PhD there, but unfortunately my PhD advisor passed away. So he was sick for a long time and I couldn't continue there. There was some other problems. So I had to start again. And so I moved to the Czech Republic. So I was very lucky to have this jump and to have this opportunity to start again. And it was at Palacký University. And so from there, life again gave me a surprise. My husband actually started his PhD here in the US. And so from then, we're staying here. And so right now, I am a postdoc in the lecture at the University of California in Davis. So this is a picture from Davis. So that's my short story. And so I think it won't be possible if my parents won't be supportive. So both of my parents didn't have didn't have a college degree. So it was important for them. And although I think it was mostly them who struggled because it was really hard financially to support me. And so my father is also disabled. He wasn't able to work when I was in college, so it was really, really hard. But on one side, my parents were also saying me that don't start working and think about money, because that's the second thing. So first thing you should do is to study, and then you need to find some support. And so that was their advice. I didn't have a mentor besides of them, but their example, the life that they lived, the motivation that was so strong, I think that's what drove me to complete this path. And so the advice that I learned from them is follow your heart and work hard. So that's really important. So this is like a dream big and do what you really like. So they never force me to do something that I don't like. So it's important to find what you like, because if you're doing interesting things, it's so easy to overcome these obstacles, and you find great people around yourself who have the same idea, and that's why they support you, although they don't know you. And of course, working hard is an important part. So don't waste your time, study really hard. That's not it. So you also need to build community. You need to feel comfortable. So I'm signing under each word what a panelist above me said. It's very important. And so what I recently found when I was teaching history of mathematics, so Pythagorean school. So Pythagoras was a leader of that school. They lived 600 BC. Oh, actually, sorry, 200 BC. And they had some rules in their school, and everybody followed their rules. And they were not mathematicians first, they were philosophers. And then they, after doing all these things, they kind of realized that mathematics is the foundation of everything. So they had some customs that they were doing regularly. So it's very important to take care of your body. So what they did, they exercised physically every day, and they had some special restrictions on their diet. And so I think it's important to keep our body healthy. If you need to exercise, you need to eat well, because if you're healthy, you can study more effectively. Then it's very important to take care of your mind. And so they studied, of course, a lot every day. They studied different disciplines, and they had a tradition to sleep in white beds, linen beds. So I think it's because sleep is so important for our mind. So we need to take care of our mind. That's our instrument that we are using in our work. And so they meditated every day. So you need to take care of your emotions. That's important. And another part is to take care of your community as well, because you live between people, and it's very important. It's not, especially nowadays, it's years after the pandemic, and as we're moving on, it's very, very important to know how people around you are feeling. So you are not an isolated person who can produce like a theorem. I'm a mathematician, so you're not a machine that is producing theorems. So you live with people, and so that's why it's really important to have a community, because community supports you, and you give back to that community. So I'm really glad that I'm here at this meeting with all these people. And a little bit of my work. I am a very visual person, and I like geometry and topology. So the geometry, I think everybody knows what. Topology studies shapes. And I think that I really like triangles and hyperbolic space. So hyperbolic space is a little bit curved. It's not flat as Euclidean. And so here is an example of a crochet model of a hyperbolic plane that I made. And so I studied different objects on these planes, triangles, how they look like. And they actually appear a lot in our lives, hyperbolic spaces. And then recently I switched to computer graphics. And for example, we study shapes, and this is a shape of a bunny. So everything that we see on computers, like video games or something like that. So in medical sciences, we need to visualize objects. and we always visualize them using triangles. And so we want to have nice triangles that we can work with. So here we see that this is a very skinny triangle, and we want to have nice, almost equilateral triangles. So that's here it is. So that's my story, and thank you for allowing me to be here.
Yeah, thanks, Maria. The image of the rabbit reminds me of 3D printing. I would think, just how you do that on computer, and then the 3D printer creates the different things. Because sometimes in, sciences, we need very specific objects to be a specific size or something. Yeah, and I think, isn't that designed in a computer?
Yeah, I'm also doing 3D printing. Yes, when you're doing something 3D printed, so first you triangulate it. You are not able to see these triangles, but they are so tiny. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then I liked your point about sleep. Well, the whole, your community and your meditation. But when you bring up sleep, as women in science, the neuroscience today, they still say it's the big unknown. We still don't fully understand the importance of sleep, or what's actually happening and how it's doing that reset. So it's just interesting that, we appreciate it. We do, of course. It's easy to see how, the next day you're tired and you're just not performing up to your normal capacity if you get a bad night's sleep. But consistent bad sleep, that's when they do notice differences in our brain. So as women in science, we can appreciate that, that you really need to be conscious of getting your sleep, even if, sometimes you do have to pull a late night or have to, work extra hours. So thanks for reminding us of that. That's still even an area in science that's being explored, continuously. Does anyone have any questions? I will say I saw that Julie put in the chat about updating your CV and doing it, as soon as the events or as soon as the things happen, because you can forget it. And that definitely, if you say every 6 months, you may forget. And it's funny because when I read that, I thought, now we have these panelists that can put on their CV. They were invited to speak on career support. So that's something for our panelists today. Now you have a little homework assignment, thanks to Julie. And that GWIS is supporting you, that now you have a new little stamp on your CV to update if you want. So thanks, Julie, for that piece of advice regarding the CV. Does anyone else, including the panelists, does anyone else have any questions? You can unmute yourself and ask, or you can type it into the chat. In the meantime, I will say it looks like Iffy is now gone. If you saw, she typed in that, yeah, she's just not connecting well, which unfortunately that is part of being an international group. Some countries have better connections than others, some locations. So Iffy won't be able to participate today. So are there any questions or? So nothing is coming up, but I guess the big thing as far as supporting your, I was going to say collaborations. Does anyone have any advice regarding collaborations and supports, or any experience with that?
So one of my positions was to be the laboratory and research manager for a large institute. And that's when I was also getting my PhD part-time. And so one thing that I think is kind of noticed and not really discussed sometimes is, if you're the only woman at the table, they immediately expect that you're going to be the note taker and provide summaries for everyone. So what I always try and do is, when I'm working with collaborations and trying to get collaborators together, working on an understanding of what we need to do and how we can move forward, and then how we are going to delegate and share in the responsibilities of the secretarial work along with the collaborative portions as well.
Right, the administrative part, because another aspect I would say, because I've had international research projects, it's just, so if you have to work together, but gauge the different personalities to see if you're on the same page. Even as far as sense of humor, like something simple like that, because then it can help if at least you have, similar personalities and you can chat, relax a little bit outside of the project, well, today we're all doing international stuff by Zoom, but when, we go back to the idea of people visiting you in the lab, if you can like if you're having an international collaboration and they're visiting for a couple of weeks and taking them out to lunch and stuff like that, just enjoying, sometimes the personalities, just make sure to try to gauge those for yourself. So does anyone have any other questions or advice? Yeah.
I have a quick question, and I just want to ask about communicating with mentors. So I feel that I always have this issue about knowing when it's best to talk to them, such that you're not pestering them or disturbing them. So I'm always very careful in reaching out to mentors, in like reaching out to them for anything, or even because I don't want to like inconvenience them. So I just want to know what's the best advice for communicating, like how frequently. And there are some programs where you join and they have this mentorship program attached to it. So how frequently should you like reach out to mentors, that it's a formal kind of mentorship program and not the informal setting where maybe along the line you just got talking and you realize that this person can be my mentor? Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, if you look, Natalie wrote in the chat that you discuss this with your mentor right from the start. And that's also something I would say, if you're concerned about bothering them too much, or, let's say you have a set schedule that you're going to meet every 2 weeks or once a month or whoever to discuss. But if you have something that you want to discuss, I would recommend sending an email to say, can you meet in the next couple of days? If it's something that is impromptu, like something that just came up that you want to get through, because sometimes just knocking on their door might be a bit of an imposition if they're busy with meetings or grant writing that they already have, or teaching. So perhaps send an email and gauge their personality and see if that would be the way to do it. And then possibly what you can do is, when you do that and then meet with them, say, in the future, if something pops up, how should I address this with you? Because, asking their opinion about what's their preference for impromptu meetings like that. And then once you have your answer, whether they prefer emails, I even know some people text with their mentors, to have a meeting. So, or perhaps it is somebody who wouldn't mind that you're just knocking at the door. So that's my feelings on it. Does anyone else have something to share?
Yeah, Susan, good advice, because I have someone who I trust explicitly, and he's just been promoted to a big position. And I said, I hope I can still ask you questions. But what I have done also is I'll say, can we meet, or I need to talk to you, when's going to be a good time? So he might suggest, and I do that through email, and then he might suggest a Zoom meeting or something so that we can meet. But he's someone who trusts me and knows that I'm honest, and I can be very open with him. But, but I'm concerned about bothering him because he's just been promoted. But he said, no, that's fine. He said he wasn't very busy right now. Well, I know that's not true. So it's hard. Who can you trust and who can you go to ask questions, and who can you really just let it out? You really need somebody who you just can say what you really need to say to them. And, there's not a lot of people in the world, but it's worth finding them, and they do exist.
Yeah, and also what I would suggest, because Jennifer wrote in the chat, set up understanding and guidelines for your both, which is a great idea. And also, let's say, you're asking this question now, let's say you've had a mentor or you've had a supervisor for 2 or 3 years, and you haven't put these guidelines in place. As far as I see it, it would be perfectly understandable, say this week coming up, to like, what? We've had this, we've known each other, been working together for, fill in the blank, a few months, a few years. and let's start to put some rules together, or you don't have to be so official with rules, but understanding or guidelines, as Jennifer says, that that's a perfect time. My point is, it's never too late. Don't feel like if you didn't do this, from the early on, that now you can't do it because you've developed this relationship over a couple of years. Because you're adjusting to the project, you're adjusting to the new institute. So maybe it is, after 2 years is when you're realizing how you want to organize things. And I think the supervisor or the mentor would appreciate that you're stepping up and acknowledging these lacks because you have organized so many other things into place. So I would also say that don't be shy. If a lot of people are saying now from the beginning to set up, which of course is a great idea, but you can also put that in any moment, because also things change, as Julie was saying. Yeah, like you may have an understanding from the day one, and then after 2 years with different family obligations, different work things going on, maybe you will have to revisit those original understandings and guidelines that you had for the relationship to work together. Did you want to say something, Natalie? Okay.
I'd like to just comment for something. So I had a real good example of someone that I wanted to be a mentor, and he's just too daggone busy. But there's a program that he does for faculty for grant writing. I'm a research scientist, not faculty, but I still applied and had a mentor that agreed to help me with that application. So now I'm getting that mentor's wisdom through this program, even though he's too busy to be like, hey, Jen, let's go over XYZ for grant writing. So even if it seems as if you may not be able to have a one-on-one mentoring relationship with someone, you might be able to kind of backdoor or find another way to still get information for yourself to move yourself forward.
Yeah, that's good advice. And also something I wanted to point out from earlier, that advice that I did not know, so I didn't pursue this during my career. So a couple of you, I believe, mentioned about having a mentor or supervisor outside of your field, from a direct line. And that's something I would highly encourage someone who doesn't have invested interest in how many hours you work and how much data you're processing and how much productivity you have, that can really stand by and to tell you, you've been working very hard, you should take a break, because you may get a different answer from your direct supervisor if you're wondering if you are burning yourself out, because that's something we really need to be careful of, because we can be pulled in so many different directions, not just with our main projects, but with our collaborations, how we're always trying to write for publications, write for grants, teaching, everyone here knows the list. That's not a complete list of all of our obligations. So that's where it really is nice to have somebody who can be a scientist, but outside of your direct focus, that can help you and objectively give you the advice that you need. So if I don't think there's any more questions. So I just would like to finish with a poll that I'll put up here. So then the question, just to see how today went, was today's meeting helpful to learn about different ways to support your career? So the answers are either yes or no, or I'm not sure. So just think of the different pieces of advice that people had given. And also these are anonymous. I always make sure to do the polls anonymous. So don't worry if you were not pleased with today's event. It's just, we need to understand, as women in science, we need data. So that's where these polls just kind of help to make sure that we're staying on track and that we're helping everybody who is attending and understanding and giving you the supports that, that's in alignment with GWIS's mission. So was today's meeting helpful to give you some ideas of the different supports you can have in your career, whether it's through your institute or outside? So for now, it seems like everyone has answered. So I'll end the poll and then I will show the results. And it does seem that the good news is the majority of people, well, everybody has said that definitely today was helpful. So you see, thanks to the different panelists who we have members from United States, of course, but then also, as I mentioned, Natalie is in South Africa, And then Ife, who didn't get to speak yet, but she was here in spirit, is from Nigeria. And then we also have a few other members, and thanks for asking the questions, and Julie also for giving the advice. So are there any other questions or any final thoughts? Because definitely the hour's up and I don't want to keep everybody. Let me just, so I'll do for now. First, I'll just stop the recording, and I want to thank everybody for participating, and this will go up on the YouTube channel. So.